There's a really funny Top of the Pops appearance in which two things happen. One, you've got Jim from Slade on bass.
Yeah.
And two, you seem to take some strange head dive into the drum kit at the end. Can you talk us through those two things?
Well, once again, it was the Australian situation with Alan. He's a long way away, and we're doing Top of the Pops, and I don't think he was that mad about doing it anyway because of Margarita time. And so, being mates with Slade, as we were at the time, we phoned Jim up and said, can you just come on and walk around, play the bass? Yeah, fine. Which I thought was really quite quirky, and I thought it looked quite big to have the bass player from another big band on with us. I thought it looked really good. I was quite excited by that. And in those days, Top of the Pops, every second or third week, I think it was live. Right, and I'd seen the faces on there kicking footballs about and jumping off the stage and stuff when it was live, and of course, the producers going, "Oh my God, there's nothing we can do about this," and I thought that was really quite cool. So this week of us doing Margarita time, it was live. So I said to Pete Kircher, I said, right, what I'm going to do towards the end of the song. And nobody believes this story. Over the years, I've fought with people saying, no, I did it deliberately. You were pissed, weren't you, Parfitt? No, I wasn't. All right, so I had a couple of drinks. But it was all pre-planned. I said to Pete, towards the end, I'm going to walk back to you. I hadn't told Francis. I hadn't told anybody, just the drummer. So towards the end of the song, I thought, here we go. And I walked back and just fell into the kit. And of course, it worked brilliantly. The whole thing went off the side. We all fell off the stage sideways, and it caused a bit of a furore, And I thought, in my book, that was rock and roll, So one side of it is we're doing this ballad, and then of course you do something like that, which is really quite one of the most rock and roll things I've ever done on telly. But nobody believes me. They all thought that I was pissed. I couldn't see the kit. I walked into it, but it was all planned. I promise you.
Now, in 1984...
Just blow my nose. Hold on.
In 1984, you announced the End of the Road tour.
Yeah.
Why then? What is it that sparks that? Right, that's it. No more gigs.
I guess we all thought that we'd done it and we'd made enough money and that we'd kind of come to the end of what we could do anymore, because I think drugs were it was largely down to the fact that there was we were doing all this coke and stuff. I think it screwed our heads up and sent us reeling off in different directions. And I remember at the time that I sort of agreed with it, okay, that's it, I guess. We weren't getting on at all well, and it was real pressure being in the band. I don't know what I thought I was going to do. I had no idea, but that was going to be it. And we did that gig, and I remember being on the stage at Milton Keynes there thinking, well, we've finished Caroline. You think, well, God, that's the last time I'm ever going to play that. And 4,500 times all that, never going to play this again. And I've since seen footage, obviously, of the fans all going, oh, they'll be back, of course they will. But we had no real intention of coming back, we just didn't. And I remember getting on a helicopter after the gig and flying away and just thinking, well, God, is that it? It was kind of weird. It was really kind of weird. And just drifted about in the wilderness for a year doing silly things and just not having anything to do. It was awful. It was just awful. Nobody was talking to one another. I spoke to Alan a couple of times in Australia, but I hadn't spoken to Francis for such a long time. I tried calling him a couple of times, but there was no reply. And so I just kind of left it, and it was just awful. There was just nothing to do. Life had no purpose, really. Because I wasn't married or anything at the time, and life just meant nothing. I had no idea the impact that life without Quo was going to have on me. I had no idea. The first couple of weeks you think, that's that, fine, but after that you think, where's the band? Where's Quo? What are we going to do, What am I going to do? And I thought I started another band with Alan, and then it was never going to be. It was never going to be right, to do that. So there came a phone call out of the blue from the record company, saying, "You owe us an album, and we're going to sue you if you don't give it to us." And I remember saying to the management, "But we got no band. How are we going to do an album?" And he said to us, "Well, I don't know, but you've got to do an album. Get hold of Frame and do an album." So in the meantime, while all this had been happening, having said I don't know what I'm going to do, I had been out and done a solo album called Recorded Delivery, which I was really proud of. I loved it. And on this album, Pip Williams had said to me, "You got to use this bass player and this drummer, respectively John Rhino Edwards and Jeff Rich." He said, "You and me will play guitars, and we'll get the bloke in the studio can play a bit of piano." Great, got it sussed. So I did the album. It was great, got on really well with Jeff and John. And we had a great time. I finished the album, and it was never released. Nothing ever came of it. It was just shelved, and I shall never quite know why. Because they gave me $100,000 to make it, and I spent $100,000 making it. Idiot, I should have just done it in a back room somewhere and put a few quid in my pocket. But it was not my way. If you're going to do something, venture on, denture on, do it properly. So I spent all the money and did the album. And then it was shelved, and then the record company said, "Quo, we want another album off you." So I said to Francis, "Look," I said, "I've met this bass player and this drummer." I said, "You'll like them. They're good eggs, nice people." He said, he wasn't keen at all. I said, "Well, we've got to do it, Frame." So we ended up in the studio, and just as I thought, they got on really well. Francis got on really well with both of them, and they were keen to play. There was no tension, there was no aggro. These two new guys, fresh, and it worked wonderfully. And we went into the studio, and Frame had found In the Army Now, played it to me, and I went, "No, not really, dickhead." Great song. And so we did it, and did that In the Army Now album with Jeff and John. And once again, it was a huge success. Army was a huge hit, and all over Europe. And we decided to go to Dubai to try out the band live. So we rehearsed it up a little bit. And Jeff and John were brilliant, fast learners, and they had the set in no time. And we went to Dubai and did a gig out there, and it all felt great. And I was really relieved, and that Frame was now, okay, this feels good again. And then I realised that it was really Alan and Francis that just couldn't work together anymore. They just couldn't. There was just a mental block between them now, and it was such a shame because they've worked for all these years together, and then suddenly, really over sort of one song, it all went pear-shaped, and they just couldn't work together. And I then realised that Francis was a different bloke now with John and Jeff, and he was well up for doing gigs again. So we started, the major tours again, and it was amazing once again.
for a wheel time.
Everything happens for a reason, doesn't it?
You can have a 1 minute break,
Alright.
literally, swap the card and do another 30 minutes, or you can let it know.
Alright, let's go and have a quick Melvin then,
Do
shall we?
that, yeah, because then we can go back and start. We go to, just backtrack to live and then get on to this. Cool.